Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Russia repeatedly tries to convince the world that it is a partner, a friend, and a provider of stability. And as soon as someone believes it, a week later, it turns out that by partnership, Moscow means something between cheap labor and potential cannon fodder. This is especially true, unfortunately, when it comes to Africa. Now, Kenya has found itself in the spotlight of the Kremlin, which has suddenly decided to deepen economic ties. This grandiose Moscow-style thrace usually hides a package of three components: trade agreements, logistical projects, and a tiny little military registration office around the corner from the Russian embassy. Russia consistently demonstrates a passion for infrastructure solutions. They build a port, terminal, or logistics center, and later on it turns out that it was just a VIP entrance to geopolitical dependence. The Kremlin skillfully turns any economic agreement into a Trojan horse. And now the horse is standing in the yard, and inside, instead of gifts, there are a bunch of recruiters with contracts for service, which is as ominous as it sounds and probably involves an unpleasant fate somewhere in the trenches of the Donbass.
Имя и возраст.
Тухан, 90 лет.
Адам, 28 лет.
Мамед, 24 года.
Откуда вы?
Дагестан.
Ингушетия.
Гитай Пита Дженга, Kenya, 32.
Мухаммадиан Хатиби, Иран.
Много лет, ладно.
Мутай Феликс, 28, Kenya.
Меня зовут Стумчанджа, мне 20 лет. Я с Китая.
Mohamed Kaufarli Damian, Colombia.
Виталий, 49 лет.
Православный. А у меня 25.
Меня зовут Моенбан, 25. Я из Китая.
Меня зовут Инхан, 34, Китай.
Martin Mwenejega, 36 years, Kenya.
Ayuba Yusuf, 30 years, from Ghana.
Громче.
Я из Колумбия.
Колумбия.
Меня зовут Зhongpeng, 22.
Понято.
Меня зовут Ян Джиншeng. Я приехал в Китай 19 лет.
Меня зовут Гансен, мне 30 лет.
Such friendly contacts have long been a cover for recruiting African citizens to fight in the war against Ukraine. And here the Russians have shown rare creativity. Some are promised a good salary, some are promised a job, some are promised education, and to some they simply say, "Oh, you're already here, sign up then." The list of recruits includes Nepalis, Cubans, Indians, and students from Africa who came to Russia to study, not to storm Ukrainian trenches. Some get education, others get sent to the front lines. The Kremlin has its own rules, apparently. According to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, at least 1,400 Africans from 36 countries are already fighting in the Russian army. The actual number is probably even higher, because Russia does not keep track of resources it does not intend to preserve. During a conversation with Volodymyr Zelensky, Kenyan President William Ruto stated outright that Russia had illegally recruited Kenyans for the war. He also asked for assistance in securing the release of Kenyan citizens who had been taken prisoner or were under investigation in Ukraine, as it turned out that these young people did not even understand what they were being recruited for. For years, Moscow has been investing money, effort, and propaganda narratives in Africa, dreaming of a new sphere of influence where it can compensate for its failures in the rest of the world. In theory, this is geopolitics. In practice, it is colonialism under the guise of economic partnership. And that would be fine if the Kremlin at least sometimes did what it says it does: invest, provide logistics, and promote culture. I mean, colonialism is never fine, let's make that clear, right? But for Moscow, at least, this cover would work. However, instead, It always does what it does best, Moscow: exploit, deceive, recruit, and drag other people into its war. It is particularly symbolic that at the same time Russia complains that the whole world is at war with it. Yes, the world is at war, but mostly as part of the Russian army, because the Kremlin has recruited everyone it could deceive from half the planet. Russian propaganda has once again surpassed itself. RIA Novosti published a story that could be the plot of a horror movie, or more likely, a stand-up routine. A Russian commander claimed, in all seriousness apparently, that the Ukrainian armed forces were allegedly dropping poisoned banknotes from drones, which even had a QR code of death on them. If, he said, you pick up this money without gloves, the poison gets into the bloodstream through the skin, and the person dies soon afterwards.
Противник сбрасывает с дронов купюры денежные, на которых находится QR-код. И они еще пропитаны ядом. Если дотронуться без перчаток, голыми руками, яд впитывается в кожу, попадает в кровь, и человек буквально, везде по-разному, смотря как пропитали, становится 200-м. А так вообще там есть вот этот QR-код, если его сканировать телефоном, то сразу выдаешь свою позицию, где ты именно находишься. И начинают по тебе отрабатывать FPV, арта, миномет.
So, there you have it. Ukrainian drones fly over Russian positions, not for reconnaissance or strikes, but to scatter poisoned banknotes. I wonder who comes up with these scenarios. Marvel screenwriters on vacation, perhaps. Granted, there are toxins of sufficient potency to kill upon touch. Some perhaps might not even be affected by environmental conditions like rain or sunlight. But if so, why has nobody taken these toxic banknotes into an evidence bag and presented them to the world for all to see? Also, how would Ukrainians make sure that their poisonous traps don't kill civilians instead? So many questions. But isn't this another tale of projection, specifically Russia accusing others of doing the things that it has done in the past? You see, according to the new voice of Ukraine, the Russians have been scattering little leaflets over Chernihiv back in September this year. Leaflets designed to look like banknotes, but actually containing an offer of collaborating with the enemy. Help us pinpoint Ukrainian positions for artillery fire, the note said, and you'll get the real cash rewards. Sounds familiar? Also, remember how Russia often scattered little anti-personnel mines, the so-called butterfly mines, which looked a bit like a child's toy and could be easily overlooked, but were capable of seriously wounding civilians upon contact? Again, is that the inspiration for Russia's fake story of the deadly banknotes? The same goes for this whole QR code thing. Scan the note with your smartphone and you'll immediately be geolocated for enemy fire. Again, sounds like news of the trust me bro variety, but there is a real story that again sounds vaguely familiar. In the past, troops on both sides had been lured by so-called honey traps on dating apps, using fake profiles of highly attractive but ultimately non-existent local girls. Intelligence units got in touch with enemy troops in the area, leading the military men to casually spill the beans on important matters, like the location of their units, for example, which ultimately should be the key takeaway that applies both to suspicious stories, like the one of the banknotes, and to any offers which are too good to be true. Think before you act. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.